Matthew records Yeshua warning his disciples in Matthew 16 verse 6. He says, "Take heed and beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and of the Sadducees." What was he talking about? He certainly was not saying that keeping the commandments was the leavening, because he taught that we must keep the commandments and that we must live by his Father's every word. He was saying that they were wise in their understanding because of their pride. They had made a religion out of do's and don'ts. They liked to be seen and heard by others. They liked to teach and to let others know what they thought was true. You can contrast this with being a student instead. They were not students of the Torah. They were teachers of it. They took the commandments on a physical plane and made a religion out of them and appointed their own thoughts to them instead of seeking their meaning from the one who gave them to them in the first place. This is why Yeshua said that they had omitted the weightier matters of the Torah. I spoke about this yesterday. It is easy to fall into this trap, and there is a brand new group of modern day Pharisees and Sadducees that are emerging onto the scene who are falling into this trap. They see the coming wrath, so they are trying to save their necks by turning to his commandments, and they have become lifted up and lifted themselves up by doing so. They are turning to the commandments as they see them and are not seeking the spiritual intent of why they were given. And they are omitting the weightier matters of the Torah, just like the Pharisees and the Sadducees did back then. And many of them want to be seen and heard for what they believe to be true today as well. They are becoming teachers, and they have left out the student part, just as the Pharisees and the Sadducees of old did. Their bottom line is keeping the commandments instead of seeking their Creator's righteousness through keeping them. I know of some who are out there teaching that we need to keep the commandments and do not even have a clue themselves of what the most basic of them are, like his feast and what they're about. Ask yourself how someone can be teaching about keeping the commandments when they do not even know what they are. This is hypocrisy. Why don't they spend time being a student instead of posting videos that are empty and hollow? It's because they want to be seen and heard, so they persist. And what is the result of their endeavors? They're a bunch of blind guides and hypocrites acting as teachers instead of joining in with their Creator and taking his truth to the world and telling people why his wrath is coming, warning them. Yeshua said in Matthew chapter 23, "You blind guides which strain out a gnat and swallow a camel, woe to you, Scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, because you clean the outside of the cup and the platter, but within they are full of extortion and excess. You blind Pharisees, cleanse first that which is within the cup and the platter, so that the outside of them can be clean as well." He is telling them that they look good on the surface, but instead they are full of filth and self-righteousness. They kept the commandments on a physical plane, but they did not live them with the intent to have their minds transformed by their Creator while keeping them. Their religion was the commandments instead of what they were sent to accomplish. You will hear these modern day Pharisees speak of keeping the commandments, but seldom will there be any design accompanying their speech as to why we are to keep them and what they are to teach us. The reason why I'm addressing this today is because of where we're at in time, and these hypocrites are seeking to draw others into what they think and what they believe to be true. People are beginning to grasp the need to keep the commandments, but they are omitting the weightier matters, so they easily fall prey to these Pharisee types. They are not embracing what he is restoring in spirit and in truth, so it is easy to surround yourselves with others who are just talking about keeping them on a physical plane. It's in people's comfort zone. I'll give you an example. I know of some who have hearkened to the commandment that he has sent out to cover our heads, but some of them are not hearkening to what this means in relation to the time that we are in. They are not taking heed to the time that we are in now because they do not believe him. This commandment was sent forth to precede the time of a great purging out, the time that's about upon us. If this is true, then why would anyone just hearken to the commandment and not to the sign? This commandment was part of a 5-part commandment to identify who his servant is and to identify his coming wrath and the timing of it. It was a sign for us to make straight our paths and to cry aloud by not covering our lips. And some say, okay, I will hearken to the command to cover our heads, but ignore the rest of the sign and why the sign was sent out. And why is this? It's because they want to continue to tell him how it is instead of being a student and joining in with him. In their pride, they look for another way to be covered by his protection so that they do not have to join in with him. They convince themselves that they can keep the commandments, or at least the ones that they pick and choose, but they do not need to hearken to all of what he is giving and restoring. They really do not believe him, because if they did, they would act on what he has said instead of just putting on a physical covering that means nothing by itself. Maybe their egos fear being wrong instead of fearing their Creator. Therefore, they are afraid of simply believing his word and stepping out in obedience and faith to do his will. The day and the year of Yeshua's return has been given, but people want to dismiss this so they can continue in their own thing, with their heads buried in the sand. This is the same thing that the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the Scribes did when Yeshua came the first time. They dismissed what he said. They had their religion, and they were not interested in what their Creator was telling them through his Son. They were wise in their understanding, and they were not going to have another tell them how it is. I'm amazed that this is happening all over again, because what I have spoken has been given to me to speak by Yeshua and his Father. It is just stubborn pride and arrogance that is blinding people's eyes at this point. His wrath is coming. They can see this and they can feel it, yet they do not believe his word that proves that he has sent forth his servant. And I marvel at this, because the prophecies were that one would be sent forth. Actually, keeping the commandments has not even become their focus when you really think about it. Their focus is talking about them, and is definitely the case. Folks, we are in serious times. Our Creator has sent forth his declaration to prepare the way and to cry out to warn people to turn from their ways to his ways, crying out to deliver people. And his way is not the way of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. This means that each of you need to focus on your own steps, walking on his narrow path, and you need to join in with him in crying aloud about what is coming and why it is coming. What good is it for any of you to keep talking about what you believe to be true or what you think when we are less than 320 days from his Son's return? Pointless teachings. He has sent forth his servant to bear witness to what is true and to what is false. And of course, also to bear witness against mankind that they love the darkness rather than the light. Some of you say to me, well, that's what you say. No, it is not. My Father's word proclaims and proves that he has sent me, but you do not believe him. You do not believe his word. The works that I have been sent to do testifies to that he has sent me as well. Not one of you can refute the works that he has sent me to do. Yet you do not believe all of what he is restoring, so you remain blind guides, teaching others the trap that you're in. And his word testifies that his servant would bring forth the day as well. Yet some of you blaspheme this as well, because you are wise in your own understanding of Yeshua's word that no man knows the day or the hour. He knows now, and he has given it, just as Scripture said that he would. No man knew back then, because it was sealed until the time of the end, just as Yahweh told Daniel it would be. In order to refuse what he has given on this, you have to also refuse Yeshua's other words, where he said that those who are guarding and holding fast to the truth and repenting will know the day. So how could that be? Just hypocrisy, just so you don't have to. Anyway. Some of you say that you are repenting because maybe you are keeping a form of his Sabbath, and maybe you have covered your heads, but you are hypocrites if you are still living off of the bread of men. Some of you still love the leaven of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. And a lot of you are like unto the Pharisees and the Sadducees. They are wise in their understanding, but they do not have Yeshua's faith. He believed his Father, and a lot of you do not become like these men. Stay away from these men and women. Stay away from them. Yeshua believed that we are to become one with his Father, and he became one with him, and told us to do the same thing. The modern day Pharisees and Sadducees are off doing their own thing, telling him how it is and how they will worship him and how they will serve him. They're off doing their own thing, deeming themselves to do his will on their own terms, serving him as they see fit in the imaginations of their rebellious hearts. They are of their father the devil, because my Father's word has no place in them. Do not fall into their trap. Yield to what he is restoring in humility, and let him mold your mind and teach you his righteousness. Others of you are sitting on the fence waiting for a sign, instead of hearkening to the signs that he's already given. Maybe you say to yourself that you will join in with him in sounding the alarm after the destruction intensifies. Maybe that'll be enough for you. Or maybe you will hearken to his instructions then. You are little different than the scribes and the Pharisees, because you are still right in your own eyes like they are, choosing to believe what you want to believe instead of believing your Creator, the signs that he's already given you and the proof he's given you, and just believing his word. His witness against all of you who will not believe him is incredible, yet in your pride you do not see it. Pride is an amazing eye shutter. It is the root of the leaven of the Sadducees and the Pharisees. They were wise in their understanding, and they did not want to hearken to his word that was given through his servants, the prophets, either. And neither did their ancestors. This is why they stoned them and why they killed Yeshua. Some of you preach to people to keep the commandments in order to avoid his wrath, yet his wrath will be poured out on you double for your hypocrisy, because you refuse why they were given to us. And you have refused his command to cry aloud that accompanied the command for you to cover your heads. Not to mention your refusal of the command to ready yourselves for the second Exodus and to stop eating the bread of men. This is because you have refused who he has sent, who has been sent to begin to rebuild the waste places and to send forth the decree of his Son's return. The religious of the day did not see that they were denying his Father by denying Yeshua. They knew that the message that he brought was not from men, yet what he spoke ruffled their feathers, and in their pride they could not handle it. They rebelled against it. Some of you knew that he had sent me when you first heard me speak. You admitted that you have never heard truth given like this before, because it was not from me, and you knew this. Yet something ruffled your feathers, so you returned to your own thing, just as they did back then. Maybe you pulled out some things like the command to cover your heads, but you went back to telling him how it is and what you will hearken to and what you will not. And you slid back into the cesspool, calling others false in your hypocrisy and in your self-righteousness, because you learned a couple of the commandments and you think that you keep them. The Sadducees and the Scribes and the Pharisees listened to Yeshua for a season as well, but they continued in their own thing, choosing right from wrong for themselves, because what he spoke ruffled their feathers. You do not understand that you are rejecting my Father, because you are rejecting whom he has sent. You're rejecting what he is restoring through me, and you are rejecting his Son all over again, because it is him living in me that you reject. It is your pride that is keeping you from hearing him. If you think that you are not rejecting him by rejecting the one whom he has sent, you just simply lie to yourself. If you think that keeping his commandments on a physical plane will deliver you, you are blind in your arrogance. In Matthew 5 verse 20, Yeshua said, "Because I say to you that unless your righteousness exceeds the righteousness of the Scribes and Pharisees, you will not enter into the kingdom of heaven." They kept the commandments and they taught others to keep them, but they did not become that which they were sent to teach us to become. It was all about the physical and not about their intent to transform our minds and our hearts in our Creator's image. Their pride blocked them from being able to see our Creator's character through his instructions, because they remained wise in their own understanding. His commandments had a place in their lives, but his logos did not. Therefore, Yeshua told them that they were of their father the devil. The same applies to the modern day Pharisees and Scribes and Sadducees today. Beware of their leaven. They are wolves in sheep's clothing. Flee from them, because their false righteousness will devour you. turn to what he is rebuilding and join in with him to help him rebuild the old waste places as he repairs the breach between him and man. Cry aloud and spare not.